It is actually.
Very warm welcome to our council meeting for the 6th of October, the final meeting of this triennium. So to open our meeting, I'm going to invite Gerald. Welcome, Gerald, to open our meeting with a karakia.
This karakia is about opening and sitting on the platform for enlightenment discussion. Talking of the goal, what the goal is, what the goal, what the goal, what the ticket is, what the whole my nose, the go time. They used to go the food, for the work, for the little, for the tuck, for the food, for the water, for the toilet, for the toilet. Then they feeling the soul, when you must go. Equal to the when we then they go all to the car, you must go. Tell us to get the fire of the Mara. Whanau, harapai te toki. Haumie, huie.
Taiki. Thank you, Gerald. Apologies, we have none this morning, full team. No requests for leave of absence. So we can go straight to item 4. This is the confirmation of minutes from our previous meeting. We have a resolution there. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Your worship, I move that the minutes, of the council meeting held 15th of September 2022 be adopted as a true and correct record.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
Your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Casey. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 5, declaration of interests. Are there any topics on our agenda today that our team may need to declare potential conflicts? Councillor Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I will be going from the room in regards to page 81, that's 11.2. I have a notifiable tree on my property. I think that's a pecuniary interest because of the value of the property or the value of the tree, so I'll leave the chambers for that one.
Thank you. Duly noted. Right, we can go straight to public forum, and very warm welcome, Georgia. Come and join us at the table here. Really looking forward to hearing about your Junior World Track Cycling Championships in Israel. So what an experience. So looking forward to hearing from you, and then we may have a few questions at the end.
Well, firstly, I'd just like to thank the Manawatu district for all your support in getting me over to Israel. To the Junior Track World Champs, it was definitely an experience of a lifetime and something I'll never forget. So now that I've started to recover after returning with COVID, I've had a good chance to look back on my experience in the last 6 months that's been leading up to World Champs. So I got selected in April, and this has been a goal of mine for 2 years, which was pretty exciting to tick off the list. Only 4 girls from New Zealand got selected to go and 9 boys, but one of our girls went to Germany, so we only actually had 3 girls. This meant we couldn't have a team pursuit, but that was all right. Can I just click this?
Should be able to, otherwise Hannah will help you.
Anyways,
We'll get it going for you.
yeah, okay. So we had a training camp in Invercargill, which was 2 weeks, and then we had another 2-week camp in Cambridge, and then that got cut short because there was quite a bit of illness and COVID got into camp and we're getting pretty close to leaving. So then I actually got to stay with a couple of the elite New Zealand cyclists in Cambridge and flat with them for a bit, which was quite good to, work with them and learn that sort of life that I would hopefully like to live soon. And then we went back into camp for another 2 weeks before departing, but I actually was sick and was vomiting, so I didn't get to go into camp till about a week to go. So it was a pretty big journey, lots of illness. And so I was actually sick for 7 weeks when we first got selected, which was put a lot of strain on my training. But yeah, so then after the 2-week camp, this was us packing up all our stuff, and we bussed up to Auckland and then flew to Dubai, where it was 33 degrees at 4 a.m. and it was a bit of a shock to the system. Kind of realised what we were in for, and then flew over to Tel Aviv, and it's pretty similar temperature there. Then that was arriving in Israel. We were there for 5 days before racing, so we actually had the track to ourselves, which was quite cool because it's a very different track to at home. It's got no walls, so you get quite affected by the wind, but it's got a roof, which didn't do a lot because there was no rain. And the track was actually, I don't know if you guys have seen Cambridge track, but it was 5 degrees steeper than that. So it was pretty slippery, a few crashes and trainings. And so I was selected to do the Omnium, which is a race made up of event made up of 4 races. And it started out with a scratch race, which is pretty basic race, just first over the line at the end wins. And the racing over there was a lot more aggressive and faster as expected than home. So I actually finished quite far back in the scratch race, which then set me up at the back of the fence for the next few races, which made it very challenging to get around because everyone just goes as hard as they can from the start and it's as wide as the fence, which is nothing I've ever experienced. But I learned so much from it, and I was definitely one of the most confident riders in the bunch. But yeah, every 5 seconds it's a close call. But and then so my next few races were they were good, but weren't the results I was hoping for just because of where I was put on the fence. But then my points race, I came out and I had nothing to lose, so I just went for it really. But there's a video of that on this slide. Should be able to watch a little bit of it. This was my points race, so the last race, and I went off the front for 9 laps, I think it was, and got 5 points.
Georgia, how fast are you going at this point?
I couldn't tell you exactly, but probably around 55k an hour, maybe.
Right.
Wow.
And is that surface wood or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
So
a wooden floor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually got pretty close to catching them, which would have given me 20 points, but then a sprint came, so they all put on the gas. But yeah, so this race, every 10 laps there's points, and first gets 5, second gets 3, 2, 1. But yeah, if you lap the field, you get 20 points. But no, I managed to do that.
And what temperature were you in doing that?
It was probably 35 degrees, so it was pretty hot. Yeah, we raced with ice down our backs, and by the end of the race, there's no ice left.
Are you did you lose a few kilos in that sort of environment?
Yes, I actually did. I came back 5 kg lighter, which is a lot. I think that is including camps.
With a new
but
team, Shane.
yeah, I lost a lot of weight, so
Yeah.
I'd hate to think if I was over there for any longer. So I placed 6th in this race, which was my best result over the.
George, those bikes, they have a fixed gear, don't they?
Yeah, so no brakes and you can't change your gears. Yeah,
No breaks.
and you can't stop pedaling because
Yeah.
you're flip obviously, but yeah, so that was a little bit of my points race. And then I was 2 days later supposed to ride the Madison, which I don't know if you guys know that race, but it's where you fling your partner in and it's kind of like a relay, but which is my main event. It's what I enjoy the most and go best at. And an hour before we were supposed to ride, we were all numbered up, warming up, and my teammate unfortunately couldn't ride. She just was facing too many challenges and couldn't quite cope with the pressure, which was a real shame and was very hard for me. It was a big day. Yeah, it was definitely the toughest day I've had in sport to date because, yeah, well, it's quite self-explanatory, but it definitely taught me a lot about high performance sport, challenges when you're in a team and it's out of your control. But yeah, so that was the racing. I learned so much from the racing and I'm definitely a different rider now. I'm hoping to return to World Champs next year because I was the only first year in the team, which means I've got another year in this grade. But also while we're in Israel, we got to experience some of the culture and do some touristy stuff as well. So we got to go to Jerusalem, which was pretty exciting. Learned heaps about their culture and all of that stuff. We actually went to the Dead Sea as well, and it was 45 degrees. It was miserable. It was not enjoyable at all. Yeah, it was. Got to see a camel, which was pretty exciting for me. I've never done that before. But yeah, as a team, we learnt lots, got to do lots of stuff, made great friends, and over the whole 6 months, there were lots of ups and downs. And yeah, I've come away a different person, met a lot of people, and I'm hopefully excited to return next year, which is in Cali in Colombia. So hopefully, yeah. But also I've got quite a few goals for next year following on from this, including going to Belgium, because leading up to Worlds, I think not having an international experience like that was pretty challenging because the racing is just completely different and we don't have the numbers in New Zealand. So I was racing with boys leading up to it, but it's just the numbers of people that makes it so different. But yeah, lastly, thank you guys so much. I could not have done it without you guys and I appreciate all your support.
Thanks, Georgia. There might be a question or two there. Amazing experience aside from your cycling, just all the challenges that you had to go through with COVID and sickness, and also the team spirit, you know, when your teammate can't ride, and that's all about learning about what life's all about. So an amazing experience. Where do you train?
So most of my training is either on the road around Halcombe, Collerton, or at the fielding track, which is obviously very different to that track. But yeah, leading up to Worlds, like I said, we had quite a bit of training in Cambridge, but other than that, it's just around fielding.
Great. Is it a lonely sport, you know, given that you live here in the Manawatu, and how often do you get to be with the team?
Yeah, it is. And that's probably one of the most challenging things, going out for a 4-hour ride by yourself in the rain. But yeah, so most of my training is done by myself. And then, yeah, so I probably had 6 weeks throughout this year of training with the team, which was pretty cool because it's much more enjoyable when you've got friends to do it with. yeah, but it's pretty crazy, like talking with some of the other teams, and they're pretty much together full time as juniors. So they're training together every day, all year round. But yeah, being a fielding, it is a little bit lonely.
No, that's amazing. So how do you keep your motivation up?
I think just having goals is probably one of my biggest motivators. Like, got to do the training if I want to achieve my goals. And I really enjoy racing, so I just try to do as much racing as I can, just local club stuff.
And you obviously have a coach and a mentor.
Yeah, so my coach, Grant Wilson, he's from New Plymouth, so that's also a bit of a challenge because obviously he's not close to me, but we have a really good relationship, so that's good. And I've got a gym coach who also helps me like mentally as well. So yeah.
Outstanding. Any final questions of Georgia? Councillor Marsh.
Thanks, Georgia. Fantastic opportunity that you've taken with both hands. I was interested in the first couple of photos, and don't get me wrong here, but you seem vertically challenged as far as height's concerned. Is that actually an advantage or a disadvantage to you in the sport?
Well, it's an advantage that I can sit behind people and get good draft, and they can't draft off me. But it can be challenging because they're a lot more developed and like stronger physically than me. So yeah, it is an advantage and a disadvantage at the same time.
Yeah, cool. And then the other question was, you made a comment around the Cambridge track, and I know Cambridge and Wanganui were vying to see who was going to get the velodrome. Where is Wanganui at with a velodrome and a covered stadium?
Well, it changes all the time, but the latest I've heard is they are not covering it, but they're resurfacing it.
Right. And that's a wooden track.
Yeah.
Is that the only one in this district or this region?
So Cambridge is the closest other than Wanganui.
Yeah, it's quite hard, isn't it, to get that experience. Thank you.
Councillor Belsky.
Councillor Marsh asked a question about the one been answered.
Awesome. Hey, what an outstanding, like you say, this is life-changing, and what you've learned out of this, amazing. So it's been an absolute privilege to help you in a small way achieve your goals, and we can just commend you and hang on to that dream, and we look forward to seeing your name in lights next year.
Thank you
for the
guys
championship.
so much.
Thank you.
Well done, Georgia.
Okay, item 7, presentations is CEDA. So this is their quarterly update. Welcome, Jerry and Bobby. Welcome. That's a hard one to follow.
I just don't know what to say, really. I've only been from Palms North to Fielding. Kia ora, everybody. Thanks for having us here again. It's wonderful to, oh, we've got this is all working now? Yep, cool. It's wonderful to be able to sit here and talk to you with our quarterly update. I'm going to brief you on a couple of the key projects that you'd be interested to hear on, and then talk a little bit about how we're performing or going with some of the focus areas for the district. So first of all, just to give you an update on Te Tanganui, the Central New Zealand Distribution Hub. So of course, this is a very critical project that's in the region, led out by the city, but it's going to have a significant impact for the region. So look, the project's continuing to gain momentum and is progressing really, really well. We've got a fantastic strategy that's been in play for about the last 18 months, and we're working through pushing that out through all sorts of different activities to, gain some, I guess, regional identity, some national identity, and in some cases international identity. We've, since our last meeting, got our collateral finalised, which has got about 2 or 3 key bits of information. One is the strategy and a compressed strategy. The biggest strategies for, I guess, people who want to look at the technical detail. The compressed strategy is more for people who want to look at, I guess, a sort of a cappuccino shot. We've got a story which is more of a, I guess, a layperson's view on the Te Tanganui program of works, and then we've got a 2 or 3 page leave behind, which is typically to leave with, I guess, when we're going out for advocacy visits, and to leave with political people and whatnot, so they can understand what's going on. The exciting bit, and I'm sure many of you have seen it, we've got a hero video which has just been completed, which has been widely circulated. In fact, we've just compressed that down to a 2-minute video because next week we're heading off to the Economic Development New Zealand conference in Christchurch, and there's a likelihood that the Te Tanganui program is going to be getting an award. So we'll be able to update that with you next meeting, but it's looking pretty positive for us in that regard. The advocacy has been going really, really well. We've been visiting lots of key stakeholders, including a number of ports. We've been to ports of Auckland, we went to Centreport last week. Napier ports are really on board with this. Lots of logistics operators. We are having very regular engagement with Kiwi Rail and Waka Kotahi and the sort of, I guess, the infrastructure leads on this project. The trip to Napier was actually really, really interesting and important. They were very keen to see how the region was faring in terms of the Te Tanganui project, our links with Napier Port, but also a good discussion around linking up the two regions' transport strategies. So that was really, really fantastic. And finally, in the advocacy piece, we had the New Zealand board in City last month, and that was really, really good. It was the first time the board had been into the region for 4 years, I think. They did a Te Tanganui visit, and I think one of the things that was great about that was we were able to chuck them into a really nice Mercedes van that we got from the VIN, take them around and show them the site, and they were absolutely gobsmacked at the scale of it. So it was a really fantastic engagement. So last week or the week before, we took a delegation of 6 through to Wellington and had a session with Minister Wood. We did a briefing to the Minister about 2 months ago to outline Te Tanganui's purpose, and that got us a 30-minute soundbite with the Minister and some of his people. That was really, really great. We met prior to that with 3 of our regional MPs up at the Beehive, so Steph Lewis, Tangi and Ian McKelvey. We've since yesterday had a reach out from one of the MPs, one of the MPs, sorry, over in the Hawke's Bay, who also wants to understand what's going on, which is fantastic. So clearly the MPs are talking to each other, which is great. We've got a really important workshop coming up soon to keep the discussions going around how we're going to ensure that all of the infrastructure aligns and fits with approved and budgeted approved plans for roading and whatnot. That's going to be happening in about 2 weeks' time. I guess it's a bit trite to say, but if we can just get 2 little things to finish, and that'll be the Kiwi Rail hub and a ring road, everything will go sweetly. So the other things we're really focusing on at the moment. And the ministerial visit, the minister asked us at the end, we had some, I guess, some asks or takeaways for him, and he actually parroted them back to us before we said it, which was, would you like me to advocate for this to be a project of national significance? So we said, yes, that would be fantastic. Thank you very much. So hopefully that will be happening. So that was a really fantastic visit. Look, the investor interest remains strong. I guess what investors are looking for is for the key infrastructures to be at least a little bit further advanced to do significant commitment. However, because we've already got a rail head in Palmerston North anyway, and there's already existing, distribution centres down there, there's already a place for people to see that it's happening. So the investment story is still unfolding pretty well. I know you'll be really interested in the progress on the food strategy. So in the last 10 days, we've confirmed the project team for the food strategy. And just to let you know that that project team is Nick Pike and Susan Goodfellow from a company called Left Field Innovation, and another consultant, Justine Gilliland from In Perspective, who used to be the CEO at Cedars Equivalent in Taranaki. So they're fantastically, aligned to the project. They've all got good track records of doing primary industries work. So they're going to be starting in about, our first meeting with them is actually tomorrow. We've broadened the representation on the technical advisory group, and that was with some feedback from the Manawatu district to broaden it to include farmers, to include more Māori input. So it's been really, really good. That group is much more diverse than it was in the first round. And with that group's first, or the project team's first order of business will be to contact the old team just to have a handover and just make sure that things are going with a continuous flow from one to the other. So the strategy messaging has been well aligned. The Cedar board, the lead team and the senior management team at Cedar have got a very, very clear vision about where we want this to go. We should hopefully have it all finished by March 2023, which will be fantastic. And then we'll be looking at how we implement that. Just a final update. CEDA is charged with doing the Manawatu food talks, and with the endorsement of the CEDA board and the lead team, we've put a bid in for the BOMA I Tupu conference, which is one of the lead Prime Ministry's conferences in New Zealand. We decided to put a joint bid in with Christchurch NZ. So if we're successful, they will do it in 2023, we'll do it in 2024, and it will alternate between the two regions over for as long as we can hold on to that. We were supposed to find out about that last Friday. Haven't heard yet. Not sure whether no news is good news, but again, we'll keep you posted. Destination management plan. We've got a session with the elected members at the district today, and that's the last of our ones in this phase with the staff at our consulting team. Look, this is going really well. It's a fantastic piece of work. I'm very, very impressed with the work that this group's doing. And for those joining us this afternoon, they've got something like 72 projects, which they have ranked using a very, I guess, a detailed matrix and analysis. So we'll hear more about that today. The spring and summer campaign is about to launch. It's going to be focused on DINKs, double income, no kids, and families who are within a 3-hour drive distance of our region. The campaign is going to run from November through to January to try to get more of the domestic visitors in city and in region. As I said, the destination management plan refresh is going great guns. That again is looking to be finished with a draft report in November. There's been more than 100 individuals engaged from across our regions at various levels in that consultation, which is really, really great. We're working through capability development and workshops for operators to keep them abreast of all the new opportunities for them. Clearly, we are finding, like I guess many, that there's a bit of fatigue out there. People are sort of COVIDed out. They're trying very, very hard to keep businesses afloat, and sometimes trying to do that extra bit is sometimes a difficult sell, but we're still keeping our stakeholders and our businesses aware. The website's going well. It's getting lots of hits. We keep refreshing the content so it's current. And of course, we talked at the last meeting around the rollout of the signage around our regions in terms of keeping people aware of what's going on too. As I said, businesses are finding things a little bit tough, but we're still moving very well. You may remember, I think at the last meeting, I talked about our regional business partnership contract that we're re-awarded. That is going fantastically well. The team in the last round were struggling a little bit to hit numbers, but they were doing very, very well in terms of quality. Good to report that for the 3 months to date, the quality and the throughput are both excellent. So that's really, really great. We're having lots of businesses engaging. These numbers were current as of the last meeting, but we've now got over 70 businesses have gone through that project. So these numbers have changed a little bit since this report was written. The workforce development planning workshops are going really, really well. Though they have been run across the region, there was a session in the Fielding district, which was well attended, so that was fantastic. This is a project that has been co-created between CEDA and UCOL to help businesses to, have a step-by-step digital analysis of their recruitment and how they train people and retain and upskill their people. The Manfield facility has been promoted for businesses and conferences. We've got down there, you'll see Kahu EV looking to see if they can come out here and trial a new vehicle that they're developing, which I think would be really fantastic. We've previously had discussions with Manfield around whether they could actually host themselves permanently out that way, so those discussions are continuing. And then you've got our carbon harvest relationship there, Fielding business with some shareholders that are based in the UK, and of course Power Project Products, which is a scrummage machine. We've had a great discussion this morning about sports science. This is another company in the region that's looking at how they can get into the market with a smart scrummaging machine. And I know there's been some interest from Massey and the New Zealand Rugby Union. Talent and skills, again, look, we're looking at ways in which we can help all sorts of sectors, including the farming sector, create a pathway and a pipeline for growth of numbers in terms of employment and skills. We're getting a really, really common story in this space across a number of different sectors, which is, look, we can cover off the technical skills. Can you sell the region? So one of the things that we're trying really, really hard to do is to get employees across the region who are looking to go to market to make sure that they link it to the Manawatu NZ website, because that's got all the rich information on there around what's going on in the region, and then they can sell the skills, say in health or whatever it is, and we can sell the region. So the content's really important to us around heightening, what's good about living in the region, what the opportunities are. We're trying really, really hard to keep the driver for talent, really, really solid, so people know what the tools are, how they can get in there, and they can, make the best of what we can in terms of getting people to come to the region to work. We've had a really fantastic pickup and engagement of the Regional Skills Leadership Group, and you might remember that this is the organisation inside the new Polytech sector that is looking at how we focus our attention on which sector to grow skills. That's working really, really well. We had a meeting with them on Accelerate 25 about 2 weeks ago, and I think there's some really joined up thinking around, what are we pushing in terms of our focus areas. And again, we've had some development workshops going around the region. Again, one of them was held in the Fielding district. So that's our quarterly update for council, and really happy to take questions at this point.
Thanks, Jerry. Thank you. I'll kick it off with a couple of questions. The first one is the Central New Zealand Distribution Hub.
Yep.
Fantastic project. My slight concern is, where does Manawatu district sit in this project? It's city-led. My view is that maybe it should be Cedar-led. But for example, did we get an invite to go to Wellington with your meeting with the ministers? I'm not aware that we did. We get updates on the project, but I think I would really like to see, how does MDC sit in the planning, so that we can understand where do we fit, what's the impact on our district, so that we can be working on that now.
Yep.
So that we get all the benefits, but also address some of the challenges around it sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Yep. No, look, in terms of the delegation, we had a limited number. We had to take up a technical expert, a planning expert, an economic development person. Mia Grant was in the delegation. We took a comms person, and that was all we were allowed. But absolutely, we should have invited the district, so apologies for that. Look, in terms of the Te Tanganui and its link into the region, it is a classic pillar project in which it will attract businesses to the region that won't hitherto fit inside Te Tanganui. So, for instance, we've had discussions just in the last 10 days with a group that wants to come into the region and do set up a business, which we've been talking to Lynn about, who's put us on to some people inside the team here at the district. And I think it's the catalyst that it has to bring other businesses that may not be distribution centres, so it might be primary production or wet production or something that won't sit necessarily inside Te Tanganui, but it might be better aligned to Kaukara Road, for instance. So we're really, really keen to keep those conversations going. And for us, what we find is the links to those sorts of things come from, amongst other groups, elected members who might hear what's going on, and people who want to move into the region, and then we can attract them in by working closely with council.
Thank you. My second one is around the regional identity. We received the regional identity and what it looked like, and the work that the city's done. Where and when is the rest of the region going to be involved in promoting the identity?
I thought they were. I'll double check that, Your Worship, with Janet, but I'll just get her to respond and we'll work out exactly. So I thought that was in play. So that's a surprise to me.
No, I'm just really asking for an update.
Yeah.
Like, all our welcome to Manawatu district signs sadly need a refresh urgently. And I would have thought there's sure places like that within an opportunity to.
Yeah, I'm sure that's in play. I'll check that.
Okay, great. Right, let's open it up for further questions. Councillor Ford.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry, Robbie. Just in terms of specifically the ring road, regional ring road, over many, many years, there's been the concept of having a fast link between Fielding and Palmerston North as part of that system has been mooted, and it sort of, every now and then you'll see it on a plan and then you won't, and etc. And just following up Mayor Helen's point is that we probably feel a little bit out of it, and so that's something that would be important for the district. And so I can't even tell you now whether that's currently in play or it's not in play. It does seem very Palmerston North centric.
No, listen, I will again raise that with David Murphy. I'm meeting with him tomorrow.
Thank you.
I know that from my perspective, in terms of the Te Tanganui, the focus has been on the ring road, but I know that fast route between Fielding and the city has been raised before.
Yes.
In our meeting with Sarah Downs from Wakakotahi this week, one of the things that she raised was that it's important that any new infrastructure that's being planned aligns with existing infrastructure. So one of the things that would need to be inside that conversation would be how that links into what's currently in terms of the region's roading network. But I'll certainly raise that with David Murphy when I meet with him tomorrow.
Thank you, Jerry.
So just following on from that, would it be beneficial for one of our roading team to be involved at whatever level in that project? So again, we understand what's going on and what are the opportunities and challenges for us.
That's a fantastic suggestion. I'll discuss that with David. Yep.
Councillor Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Thank you, Jerry and Bobby. Good morning. Just commentary around Palmerston North Airport and with the likes of Air New Zealand. You said the board have visited or are about to visit. I sorry, I just want to pick that up.
Yeah, no, they visited. It was July. I think it was July. Yep.
July. We had a breakfast of which all of the key people in the region met with them. Yeah, it was a really good.
It was fantastic.
Really good meeting.
Okay, so just thank you for that. So my commentary is around sort of air cargo, our freight movements and air movements in New Zealand, starting to talk in this commentary around international cargo at all.
Not international cargo, and it's really interesting when you talk to David Lanham, the CEO at the airport. One of the things that is, I guess, not a tension point, but there's two ways of accessing or opening up international. One is to have international coming to Palmerston North, which has not been successful, but the other way is to have routes out to where the international comes. So that's the focus at the moment. I guess the other thing, it was mentioned during that visit and subsequent to that visit that there is Air New Zealand are looking at jet services into the city at some point over the next wee while. And that was driven by the space under the plane, not who sits in it.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I think that would give us a real challenge, well, not a challenge, an opportunity to fill it. So to get some of our excellent regional goods out,
Yeah, exactly. And that's where our strength lies, not in tourism or passenger numbers, but actually in primary produce.
Actually, interesting point though, the visitor sector is worth $500 million a year. It's big. And that's mainly visiting family and friends and doing business.
I think prior to COVID, I think we were about 7th busiest airport. Of course, with COVID's tipped a lot of things upside down. But who knows in the next year or two how that actually shapes up.
But it's also worth noting that we're one of only 3 airports in New Zealand with 24/7 freight.
Exactly. And then backed up potentially with Ohaki if it all.
Yep. And a hydrogen fuel plant about to be opened in the next 6 months.
It's good.
Yep.
Excellent.
Thank you, Councillor Headfield.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Jerry, with freight out of Palmerston North Airport, clearly Air New Zealand don't do it because whoever does it, the 737 does it every night, don't they?
Yep.
Parcel, whatever.
Yep.
But I think one of the issues is that since COVID is that Palmerston North as a departure point as an airport only services Auckland and Christchurch, whereas in the past it used to service other areas, even at one stage Nelson, Hamilton and Wellington. So my view is that actually in New Zealand have constricted the service out of Palmerston North Airport, which makes it extraordinarily difficult for our business folk who want to fly either to Wellington for the day or Hamilton. And in days gone by, I used to use those services quite regularly. Having said that, other airlines that have come in, like Origin Pacific, have been forced out of business have been competed out of business by Air New Zealand's predatory behaviour in the past. So I believe that actually Air New Zealand have badly let our city down or our region down in terms of the constricted routes that they're prepared to fly. And if they're not prepared to fly them, it's my view that often their behaviour is predatory. And they should be called to account for that, in my view.
So listen, we have 6 weekly meetings with, it used to be Ruben Livermore, who was our regional contact. It's now a guy called Jason, whose surname I can't remember. But we meet 6 weekly with him. And certainly the last time we met with him was about 2 weeks ago. He was talking about what options there would be for regional routes to expand. And it just comes down to volume And so I guess it's how many seats they can get into a plane. He was saying that they are focusing on increasing their fleet of jet flights. So for instance, for the routes you talked about, they're already in play, it'll be less flights, but bigger, which means that the ATRs that they have, which they're not getting any more in after the current lot, will have potential freeing up of routes that they can go to other routes. So I think I'll keep that conversation going with Jason. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Belsky.
I couldn't find it now, but I read it during the week where you've got a draft report out or proposal, and it was basically, I'm surprised I can't find it now. But you had the accommodation of the north, you had bushwalks of the north, and a lot of them were missing. And a lot and misplaced. It was quite a shambles, and but I thought I had it here today, but I can't seem to find it. But yeah, there was Airbnbs missing, and there was tracks missing, and huts in wrong places, and yeah. So I thought I'd bring it up today because I thought we were talking about it, but it's not here. But
it might be at the workshop this afternoon.
Yeah, that's a good place to bring it up is with our workshop this afternoon.
True. Sorry about that. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Belsky, you'd be pleased to see after our meeting we had last month that we were able to get a hotel in the city, but not in a core. Apologies.
No, on our Iron Gates website, it's got everything up there. So Janet Reynolds or whoever.
Yeah, no, Janet will be, she's going to be there today.
It's all there, but it was just basically
Yeah.
not right on your maps.
Okay, cool. Great, thank you.
Right, any further questions or comments of our team from CEDA? No. Thank you for the update. It's always good to firsthand be able to hear what's going on, have an input. And I guess what you're hearing from us is that NDC are keen to be more involved in these regional projects. You know, while the city centrified, there's an opportunity for us, and we should be there at the table. And I'd like to see that.
Yeah, thank you. We should, and look, we 100% concur.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your time today. Steve, you had
I just wanted to know what you thought of the Kiwi hub, the rail hub. Obviously there could be a change of political power. Do you think that's pretty set in concrete, that hub?
You can never tell. There was a great discussion I heard on the national radio this morning around the traffic issues they're having in Waikato, which was based on a pre-approved, budget-approved roading change that was put on hold. Just suffice it to say that we are courting all of the national policy portfolio holders for this key project, and they're well aware of it. Simeon Brown, I think, is in town in the next month. So me and Helen will discuss that at the lead team and make sure that the district's in front of him as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, team. Thank you for coming this morning. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, everybody, and best wishes for the weekend. And if we don't see you, I hope everything goes well and whatever you do next. If we do see you, we'll see you soon. Best wishes.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Item 8, notification of late items. We do have a late item to be presented. And the notification of late item has been notified for consideration. This is the Rongatia Road seal widening. And the purpose of the item is to seek council approval to award the roading contract for the Rongatia Road seal widening. And the reason this item was not included on the agenda for the meeting was due to the contract evaluations not being completed in time to be able to be included in this council agenda. The consideration of the item cannot be delayed due to this being the last meeting of council for the triennium, and the contract needs to be awarded prior to the next ordinary council meeting on the 17th of November. So I'll move that the item Rongatia Road seal widening be accepted as a later item of business.
Happy to second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Yeah. That's carried, and that item will be in public excluded. Thank you. Right, we move on to page 18. These are the recommendations from committee. First up, 9.1 is our audit and risk quarterly performance report from our recent meeting. I'm going to ask Councillor Campbell, as the chair of audit and risk, anything in that report to highlight, and then whether, is Amanda with us today? No, she's not.
The rest of us are going to wing it.
Okay, then we can take any questions from that report.
Thank you, Your Worship. One thing I would comment on is thought it was a satisfactory financial performance. Same scenarios as every other quarter. The capital expenditure spent versus budget is probably well behind where we were hoping to be. We're assured that that work is progressing. We've achieved during the year 35.4 million versus a budget of 64. So only actually a little over half where we were hoping to be, but as I said, work's underway. Otherwise, the council achieved a operating surplus of 12.8 million versus an annual plan budget of 8.7. So that was encouraging. Operational wise, pretty good shape. And then all of the we did review all of the respective divisions of council. I highlight that the tertiary performance had improved over the last year or two, so that was exciting to see. And I don't think there was any particular areas of major concern. Some departments were up and down against budget, but generally pretty good.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I think, Your Worship, if I may.
Yes, Councillor Casey.
And maybe the chairperson of audit risk could just probably help guide through there. Just that concern, well, I certainly have, of a fairly large surplus. Page 38 of our agenda, $10.5 million surplus. I know that when we had the auditors here a little while ago, we declared that there was surplus as well. And it's just probably more of a precautionary note, really, as opposed to any further commentary.
Page 38.
38 of our agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had
10,000 surplus revised budget.
So maybe is that something our CE, Shane, you can comment on, or any of our other team that
So the surplus isn't cash necessarily. It involves budget. You know, where we haven't spent budget or we've had savings. So that's against the budget. So that will account for a lot of work that just wasn't done.
Yeah, I suspect that's the case, but wasn't confident in thinking that until I asked the question.
Yeah. I think what Councillor Casey, what that report does, just highlight the variances of where it's trying to explain that the reasons that we're the actual expenditure was different to the budget. And, so, for example, the major item there is the Hakia water scheme, which I think was completed after the end of June. Right. So that was the biggest one. And the other major ones was, there was some roading emergency works, $1,500 or 15, $1.5 million, I mean. Just a couple of items like that. And I think most of that work is probably happened after the end of June.
It's just as we, if the public gets a hold of it and goes, MDC, why have you got a $10.5 million surplus? Are you taking it? It's just important that we're able to speak into that. Yeah, and speak into it accurately, as opposed to
A lot of it is that additional funding that we got through Hakia, through emergency works. There's some there from the DIA money that was additional. There's also a bit of money that came from carry forwards. So it's just money that was additional to it. So it's more of a good news story than it is a bad news story.
Absolutely. And there is, it says in detail on page 38, the various projects to explain around that. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm back on page 21. Sorry to go backwards. But it is about going backwards, so it's on the debt levels at the bottom of the page. And it's just, I'm trying to get my head around it, because it talks about your closing position, your drawdowns, etc., and then your assumed debt repayments through the annual plan. And then the last sentence is actual repayments made. Excuse me. We're 5.9 million due to land sales not progressing as planned. It just didn't really sit with me. And the reason it didn't sit with me is it says actual repayments and then says not progressing as planned. And then it's actually of land that we paid for from Manfield. So I think from a reporting point of view, we need to stipulate in there what we spent on the Manfield land and then perhaps just the profit that we made out of those land sales when it does come in.
So in the budget, there was an allowance made for income received from sale of land, assuming that some of that land in South Street or Cove would sell last year, and we would then have that money, and the purpose of that money would be to repay loans. We didn't get enough of those sales settled in time to realise that full income, so we weren't able to use that to repay the loans as was intended. So it's a timing thing, but once that land is, there's only I think one lot left now to sort, and then we will do a full report back to council around that, because those costs actually go back over a number of years.
Thank you.
The only thing that worried me, sorry if I just made a comment, it was a bit like the Sanson land and the fact that we held that there and then we made a sale of it. But what did we click out of it? 45k or something, and that was about it. So
We're doing okay today.
thank you.
Right.
I think it not selling early actually did us a favour.
Got a better price.
Straps, eh?
Yeah.
Right, thank you. Any further questions or comments? Otherwise, there is a recommendation on page 18. Councillor Campbell, if you'd like to move, please.
I'll move it.
Oh, sorry, we have a question. Councillor Shaw.
Really a question, it's probably one for Hamish. To see the solid waste volume was down. Is that because we've got some new private players in the field?
It's not so much in terms of that, it's more the assumptions around some of the commercial volumes that we didn't see. So it's not increased competition in the domestic space. It's an impact commercial space that didn't happen, and also cost within the period in terms of take that.
I had noticed that there seemed to be a few more private providers.
We could, of course, always claim that our waste minimisation plan is on fire.
Yeah,
Working.
absolutely, is working. Councillor Belsky.
This one's for Hamish. On page 38, you've got reduction in NZTA subsidy of 831,000. Is that what the reduction was since we've got less percentage of subsidy? Is it 831,000?
Yeah.
Less.
It does relate to the reduction of subsidy. It's also the timing of works and what was expected in the budget versus what we did.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot.
So sorry, Your Worship. So if there's work carried forward into the next financial year, that subsidy will be attracted in the next financial year if it hasn't been received in this financial year.
And also remembering, if I'm right, that our NZTA subsidy goes down 1% next year.
It's a combination of the two.
That's a lot of money.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor Campbell.
All right, I'll move that the council received the quarterly performance report and treasury report to 30 June 2022.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hadfield. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Right, item 9.2, audit and risks. This is the annual report for the year ending 30th of June. Councillor Campbell, is there anything in there you particularly want to highlight?
Yeah, yes, thanks, Your Worship. we always get to the end of the year and look back and tend to think, what on earth did we do? So this is a chance to highlight the fact that we did do a number of pretty good projects and reflect on those. So I thought I'd just quickly note a few of them. There was the work we've done around a massive amount of building consents, roading and cycleway work, the Campbell Road cycleway in particular, the playground at Koa Park, pretty amazing project down there. We've got the Orbiter bus service underway. The Mangaweka Bridge was completed and opened. The Cactus program was running. The huge amount of work on the wastewater centralisation project. There's the opening of the Resource Recovery Centre, the waste management policy, which we put out, which is, I think, going to be a really good step forward in terms of rubbish management. So yeah, look, some pretty good stuff there and a good chance to reflect. And then just from a financial point of view, as we've just mentioned, the council achieved a surplus of 12.8 million versus the annual plan budget of 8.7, so it's about 4 million better. We invested in new assets of 38 million and we borrowed a net amount during the year of only 3, which compared to 7 the year before. So all in all, it was pretty good financial performance too. So I'm very happy with all of that.
Thank you. Shane.
I just need to point out, councillors, that this is the drafting year report, because we haven't audited it yet. They're actually here now. So that if you recall, usually we would adopt our end of year report by the end of October, fully audited report, but audit's been delayed and pushed out and it's not now due to be completed till the end of the year, December. So we've got an unaudited draft report in front of you. We thought it really important that this council gets to see the end of year report, because it's actually stuff that you did, not what the new council coming in did. But we still have to go through that audit and make whatever, and it will come back to the new council probably February to be adopted. So given that council doesn't sit in January, so just need to make sure you're aware of that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments in relation to that report? I think Councillor Campbell highlighting, there's some pretty meaty projects. Some of them are ongoing and long-term, but the benefit to the district is significant. So thank you for highlighting those. So if there's no further questions, Councillor Campbell, would you like to move the recommendations on page 39?
Yes, move that the council receive the draft annual report for the year ended 30 June 2022, and that the Mayor and Chief Executive be delegated authority to make any minor changes requested by Audit New Zealand and to sign statement of compliance and responsibility as contained within the annual report for the year ended 30 June 2022.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Marsh. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Right, moving on to item 10. These are minutes from other committees for our information. So let's go through them. 10.1, the Joint Strategic Planning Committee on page 40. This was the last meeting of the triennium for the joint group. Probably the highlights were the quarterly economic report that we received from Stacey and Kian, that's right. From the city, and which showed the region in good heart. And the other key one is moving forward, the resolution that was made to have a look at what is the future for the Joint Strategic Planning Committee. We've had some discussion about what that might look like, and there will be ongoing discussion about how do we potentially turn this into a sub-regional forum with other councils around our region, and that discussion has already started, and that will come back to for a decision to be made around what the future of this committee is. Shane, is there anything else you want to add to that?
No, it's just that we've got the city has an in-house solicitor, an in-house counsel. So Cheryl's working with her to have a look at what our legal options are around an alternative entity, if you like, to manage CEDA, be it an electoral college or be it whatever, a joint committee of some sorts. I don't know, but she'll get back to us probably next month.
Yeah, and that is something that we do need to resolve about how we manage CEDA going forward if the Joint Strategic Committee changes structure. Councillor Ford.
I think this is very important, and I'm certainly have confidence in looking to our staff to come back with a recommendation for both councils. I'm not as confident in the elected members of Palmerston North, and I'll state that quite bluntly. I think if we head down the path that they were wanting to head down, we'll be just heading for another 50 cups as we had at the end of 2020, I think it was, because there'll just be too much potential for the two councils to see things completely differently in terms of CEDA. But my hopes are with the staff to come back and do the recommendation, and that this doesn't need to, hopefully it won't need to be an issue, but I'm just mentioning it today just in case that doesn't work in terms of the Palmerston North elected members. I think we might have to address it.
Yeah, I think one thing we need to concentrate on is that 3-year letter of expectation and 3-year statement of intent. That way we sort of lock it in for 3 years and we don't have those yearly gains, if you like. So that can be achieved. I mean, other CCOs have achieved it with other councils, so we won't reinvent the wheel. We'll get some stuff.
That'll be good.
Yep.
I know Wanganui do it, so with Wanganui and partners. So I'll give David Langham a ring, their CE there, and see what they've got by way of paperwork and how they do it.
Councillor Quarry.
Thank you. Is it my imagination that report that we received this morning from CEDA a far better standard than what we've had in the past?
Well, I think what has changed is that we have asked for quarterly updates to this council with specific reference to work that they're doing that impacts the Manawatu district. And I found that really beneficial, even sitting on the lead team. It's still really good to have that come to us concise, and also for all elected members to have the opportunity to ask questions around it. I still have some concerns about MDC needing to step up its game with the role that we play within CEDA, and making sure that we are around the table with some of these regional projects that they might be city driven, but we need to be there.
Sure. It just seemed the report was far more relevant to us than had been in the past.
I think the key point there is they're actually now coming and presenting to us on a regular basis, because before they were absent, and we actually get a yearly update, and that was our lot. So, you know, it's really good to see that they're doing that.
And I'm even encouraging them to take it a step further. They did, at our request, probably the beginning of this triennium, I think it was 6 monthly, write a report in basic language for our ratepayers that we were able to send to our community committees, to ask them to send it out to the community, so that we were trying to allow our residents to have a better understanding of the value of the work that CEDA does. So, and I've been talking with Jerry about reinstating that. Any further questions or comments? No? Right, thank you. The next one is the minutes from the previous Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor Campbell, anything in there? We've probably covered much of it.
Yeah. Anything else that I want to highlight?
Councillor Marsh.
Just it's this presentation there, safety and wellbeing deep dive. Just make an acknowledgement here in formal council meeting of Brooke Rush and the work that he's done within that health and safety sphere within council, and note his farewell yesterday. And just like to acknowledge that within a formal council, and wish him all the very best.
Absolutely, thank you, and endorse those comments. He's done some really good work in that space. Any questions or comments on the audit and risk minutes? No? Okay, right. We can move on to officers' report. We're now on page 52. This is the Makino Aquatic Centre Section 17A review, which this review has now been completed. It's a statutory requirement of council to undertake. And so you have the report there, and welcome, Lynn.
Welcome, Your Worship, councillors. I'm presenting this report in instead of Amy, who's doing interviews at the moment. So it's been 6 years since the last review of the Makino Centre. And as you'll see, we got third bearing to complete the review. They actually did the review in March, about March, April, and we received the first draft report in June. So when you're reading the report, do keep in mind that that was, we were nearing the end of COVID times, etc. You'll see that they reviewed information that we provided them, and they interviewed staff, some key users and some other providers of services in other districts in Palmy and Tanganui. They noted that Makino is seen as a high-performing facility, and it's valued by the community as a community asset, which is pleasing, and that it was meeting or exceeding its levels of service. They did note that there were challenges finding staff, and that had impacted the number of people that are participating in programs, and that is true, but that is also during COVID times.
Yeah.
They highlighted that we've got we're perhaps one of the more successful, we'll have one of the most highest rates of per capita of drownings in New Zealand, in Manawatu, not in the pool, in the district. Yes.
That includes Tanganui, doesn't it?
Yes. And that this facility is well placed to actually support the community in learning about water safety, and we've been recently talking about how we might do that, not just from the facility, but actually reaching out to and partnering with other places like Water Safety New Zealand, who were keen to partner with us prior to Christmas last year. They also noted that the district's got a growing and ageing population, and suggested that that'll increase pressure on the facility in the coming years, and that the facility might want to think about how it might evolve in the future and incorporate hydrotherapy pools or such type of activities. And they note that there's already pressure on lane space during winter months, and that is very much true. They comment that Makino is relatively cost effective compared to other council-run facilities, but maybe less cost effective than commercially operated facilities, although they note that's quite hard to measure accurately. We do have higher user fees and charges compared to other facilities, which was interesting. And they posed a question about whether we needed to revisit this, particularly for older adults. They note that a shared service model with other councils or through a CCA would likely not create enough cost benefits to justify the effort and the cost of change, but that savings could be made if a commercial delivery model was explored, but that wasn't a short or medium term consideration due to the need to do quite a lot of consultation with the community. So they recommended that the current service delivery model continue, but that an option should be explored for collaboration with neighbouring local authorities to perhaps develop a network where we could help improve our staffing and increase training and development opportunities. And yes, keeping in mind that when they were doing that, their staffing issues were a problem, and they're not at present. We've got a full complement of staff except for the coaching position. They also recommended that the Makino look at its level of service performance measures to better understand customer experiences and satisfaction, although they noted that they were doing a reasonable job of that now, and to look at how we measure notable safety incidents so that we can plan to reduce these, although they noted that there was no significant risk there at present. So council has delegated authority to accept the review of third bearing and to approve the continuation of aquatic services as it is now at Makino, and there's a recommendation in front of you, and if I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Lynn. Thank you. So the last one where they talked about looking at opportunities to improve customer service, how does that translate into an operational point of how you manage that and look for those opportunities?
One of the things that the staff are doing now, and if anybody goes to the pool, you'll notice in the coming weeks, is that they are asking users when they come into the pool. So these are people who are already using the pool. You know, what are their ideas for what we could do in the pool and what we could do better, and also to give feedback about what we're doing well.
Yes.
And we were talking about, you know, just even allowing people to write on a sticky note and put it on a board as they were coming in or out of the pool in the foyer. So that's an initiative, for example, that we're starting with, but we agreed that we would have a chat to our comms team about how we could use digital tools to ask the community to give us feedback as well.
That's great. Thanks. Councillor Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Lynn, thanks for bringing the report. It's certainly very detailed. I just really picked up on your points around, it's on point 16, page 59 of ours. We're really excited the idea of doing a partnership, industry partnership, not only with Massey, but also please consider UCOL. They have a very good sports program as well.
Good idea. Yeah.
And of course, their ability to get to us is reasonably well as good as well. So while, and you're right, I mean, we read this report, it's a couple months old now. I'm glad that staffing levels are back, but it could also quickly change as well with a fairly dynamic labour market at the moment. Yeah, I think that's exciting.
Thank you.
Councillor Short.
Steve, could you he had his hand up first?
Oh, okay, thanks. Looking at your fees and charges, yes, you are a nose in front of them, but the preschool, you're almost a horse in front at $3.30 for preschools. Tanganui is $2, and then it goes to $1. Could we drop that $1? Because if someone's got 3 kiddies or 2 kiddies under, it's quite an expense, that's all. Do you think, or are you looking at the charges?
I mean, it's something that we will consider during the year, and part of the feedback that we want to get from customers is this price point a problem? And of course, the staff use their discretion, because if they know that families have got, you know, challenges with finances or have lower incomes, and if they have a number of people, there's swings and roundabouts in there. They take the reasonable person approach.
We also need to remember that if we reduce the user charges, that money has to be found elsewhere from the general ratepayer.
Yeah. It'll probably depend on your feedback a lot, wouldn't it? From the customers. And
our ability to also partner with others to perhaps have other revenue streams.
Councillor Short.
There's just a couple of things that turned up in the report that I thought they might have had more information about. So when we did the Making Aquatic Centre Focus Group, I was actually the chair of that committee. So there were some things recommendations that came out of that committee, and also a stage 2 full upgrade. So we've done stage 1, but not stage 2. And I didn't see those things reflected, and I hope that report is still floating around. 80 was also in the group, so it should be there. We completely ruled out covering the 5th and 9th pool due to expense. Quite a bit of work was done on that. But stage 2, it was recommended that on the Makino stream side of the Learn to Swim pool, that a lane pool be put in, about 3 lanes maybe, and possibly deep track for the aqua stuff, and also a hydrotherapy pool. Now, I don't know whether that still shows up in any of those reports, because they wrote down questions about the community have mentioned these things, but they actually are on the plans on this, so I'm hoping that they are still there. pricing's a really hard one because basically to get your prices low, it means you have to subsidise more with rates, and it depends on where you're located. We went around and looked at quite a few swimming pools, and I remember, for instance, Wanganui Splash Centre saying because they're so close to the sea, if they make themselves too expensive in the summer, then families don't come to the pool, they go to the beach, you know, but we don't have that as a challenge quite so much. I certainly took on board the comments around pricing for seniors. Perhaps that is an area that we do need to look at. And the other one was staffing. Look, there's no doubt that COVID has had impact on staffing, but I do hear from the community that we don't pay well at the pool, and that's both student lifeguards and instructors, and many of them have left to go other places, and I have a difference in what we pay rates are at Hākea or Martin or Toledo, etc. And I just wonder if we would have more luck in that space if we reviewed the pay rates of staff, particularly those taking programs.
And we have done some of that this year as part of the salary reviews for staff. So that's, you know, we are, and that's something that we're actively working on with the people and culture team to help with that. But yes, take your point.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks, Lynn. Just in regard to the conversation we're having around fees, I'd prefer to look at it as an opportunity in the fact that, and I know in our situation, we bought our grandson so many swims over that period, of which he's had that many swims. So I'd like to see some progression in the IT side of it, where a text could go out, because it's obviously relatively cold out there, so he doesn't want to go for a swim. But if you got a text alert to say you've still got so many swims left, go and use it, then we would be quite happy to fund the next group of swims and pay the fee if we knew he was using it. But he'll get to the end of his 3 or 5 months or whatever it was, and he's probably only had 10% of what we've paid for, and we'll just go, well, we're not renewing a car. So yeah, those opportunities are out there to actually progress the income side of it by a little bit of introduction of IT, etc.
It's a great idea. And with the new Invibe system that they've got in there is more digital, that they've just implemented.
Yep.
There's more digital capability than there has been before, which is good.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Quarry.
A couple of years ago, there was an issue with regard to the laminated beams that hold the roof up, the fading down the basin. Is there any other issues in regard to the structural integrity of the pool system?
Not that I'm aware of, but yeah, shame.
No, that was all addressed, and there was repairs were done. So there's no issues that we're aware of now in terms of the structural integrity of. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Campbell.
Just go back to the pricing issue. It's worth noting in point 11, they've identified that the real cost of running a pool is $21 per person. So, if people are only paying $5, it's pretty big subsidy covered by every other ratepayer in the district. Yep. So big difference there. Yeah.
And a lot of that was the capital spend that as well. But, the depreciation and interest on the capital spend that we have to.
Really, if it was full user pays, you'd be paying $20 a swap.
Yeah. And it is something that gets raised, right around the district, particularly in our villages. Why are we paying in our general rate towards the pool, and we've got our own pools and we don't use them? You hear that all the time. Yeah, so it would be a tough one to address. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Well, it was actually like all council expenditure, isn't it? Because citizens of the Great Manawatu district have their own interests and desires for what they probably see as important in terms of council offered activity and who pays for that. And I think that's actually something that's just almost universal across everything we do. But just slightly good report, Lynn. There was quite a few things that I had a look in. And the conclusion obviously makes sense. But the thing that I did note, and we were talking, I think Councillor Casey mentioned drownings, or might have been Councillor Short. But the interesting thing is I find is how we approach in a generic way all of these issues around looking at activities that create fatalities, and drowning is one of them. And I note in here they say per capita fatalities in the Manawatu Whanganui area 2.4. That actually equates to 6.14 fatalities per annum, just so you're aware. And when I compare that to earthquake fatalities since 1815 at 2.4 per annum, I find that sometimes the balance in which we actually focus on the risk and the way we look at risk and things is actually totally convoluted. And of course, it would be remiss of me in the last council meeting of the triennium to point out the nuance around earthquake fatalities at 2.4 since 1815. And as a comparison, I believe that we could do better in analysing the risk and actually looking at factual stuff in terms of actually how we then propose to look at some of these things. Not decrying the fact that 6.14 people, but difficult, but over 6 people can die from drowning in the Manawatu Whanganui area. And then we've got a whole lot of other things, workplace accidents. Council's done a lot of good work in its own systems. We have road fatalities, all those sorts of things. All I'm saying is that the way we approach it, I believe, is totally out of kilter. Couldn't help myself. But a great report. Thanks, Lynn.
Thank you. Some good points, nevertheless. Councillor Marsh.
I can just follow on from that, and it's a bit of a side issue as well, and the fact that actually Facebook was out the other day. There's been a huge amount of papa and trees that have fallen into the Raumai, along the river. I presume that would be the same across most of the rivers in the district. I'm just wondering whether our publicity could pick up on that as we come into the summer and just warn swimmers, because that's where our fatalities have happened, have been within our rivers, and something that they could pick up on that. Just a comment to the aside, and now I'm happy to move the motion if that's where you're at.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate that.
And would you like me to read it out?
Thank you.
That the council accept the review findings of Third Bearing Limited that recommends the continuing with the current service delivery model that retains the in-house service and exploring options of collaboration with neighbouring local authorities to help with staffing issues.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Short. Thank you. Any final discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thanks, Lynn. Thank you to, please pass on our thanks to Adi and the team for the good work, and keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just acknowledge Nicole? She is doing a really good job of leading that team. We're very lucky to have somebody of her calibre and her swimming background as well.
Absolutely. If you could please pass on our thanks. Thank you. Right, so 11.2, this is Plan Change H, the Heritage and Notable Tree Review, seeking approval to notify the plan. Welcome. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning, councillors. Today we are seeking approval to notify Plan Change H, which is a review of the District Plan Heritage and Notable Tree provisions. We've been at council a few times talking about the plan change, and Rochelle has done some good work in response to consultation on a draft and having good feedback from the directly affected parties. So we've now got to the point where we're ready to publicly notify, and that is a council decision, and so we are here today. There are a couple of, so I'm not going to speak to it. It's really just if there's questions, but I will just make one note that, as part of our ongoing sectional district plan review, this plan change is limited in scope. So while it's called Heritage and Notable Tree Review, just a couple of comments on that. So in terms of notable trees, we're not expanding the notable tree kind of listings right now. It is a review of what we've got. And there'll be some work in the future as if we want to go there and look at more notable tree protection. Likewise, in terms of heritage, council reviewed the town centre heritage back 2016, 15. There's potentially some more work to do there, but at this point in time, it's not that. And there are a few other sort of sections of the wider heritage chapter that will need to be picked up at a later point. So this is targeted, and we're trying to keep the scope narrow to keep things moving. But yeah, Rochelle's here. If any questions based on the work that she's done.
Thank you. Thank you to you both. Questions or comments? Councillor Short.
Well, it's just a very little question. Can't find what page it was on now. Under the notable trees, there was two oak trees on 41 Wood Street, and it said that they were there in era. When we did the plan change around precinct 4, those two oak trees are on the Bailey property and they're not actually really located on Wood Street. They're located on the road. I just wondered if that had been captured and where people not realising which the trees were. Because it said that they were there in era, but actually I think it was passed that they were notable and they wanted to.
So those trees were actually located, when we looked back at the assessment that was done on them, they were located outside of the precinct 4 area, and the trees, the notable tree symbol that has been included in the district plan on planning maps is actually in the Bailey property on Root Street.
54 Root Street, yep.
But that doesn't reflect what the trees in the photo of the trees, the symbol with the location of those trees wasn't what was assessed, and that was outside of the precinct 4. So we did receive some advice on what to do with that, since the assessment wasn't on the actual trees that were the subject of discussion, and it was suggested to just remove them and without further ado.
So is that meaning that those trees are not to be?
They would not be protected as part of it.
I mean, it's two mature oak trees, and I wouldn't say they're the greatest of specimens because they're planted very close together. But the guy who operates off that property is a firewood contractor, and that always worries me.
Thank you. I guess so that where those trees are located, they would be part of. So they are part of precinct 4. So they're no, they're not.
So they're on Markino Road, almost as you go swing around that bridge to the Lethbridge Road.
Yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's two there.
Yep.
Just behind where the houses finish.
Okay, thank you. My other question was probably here, but I couldn't put my finger on it. So this, if we go out for notification, that goes out immediately, and for how long?
We're not going to go out immediately, and we're looking to go out in November. And the reason for that is, we've from previous plan changes where there are directly affected parties involved, we want to do a really good job of communicating what's changing, and so they are fully aware of what was versus what will be, and being able to ask questions of that. There's a lot of documentation associated with all these properties, and so I think it's just important for us not to rush that. Well, there will be a bit of a rush, a constant workload for Rochelle, I think, over the next month. So we're looking to notify in November.
Okay, thank you. And in the meantime, communicate with all of the impacted.
We've been even coming today. We've been contacting the owners to say this is coming here. Be prepared. It's on its way. Thanks for your feedback and on the draft.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, thanks, Matt. One of the questions I had, which you probably just answered actually, is how happy is everybody going to be with all the stuff? And when you look at all of the stuff that's on the thousands of words that are in here, trying to find out actually what makes sense. To be fair, it's quite challenging. So that's, I guess we'll wait until consultation's finished and we'll understand, or the next council will understand whether people agree or not. I think my major concern around all of this has always been the rights of private property owners versus some bureaucratic nonsense that some nitwits in Wellington bloody invent. So that's always my major concern around it. But I guess hopefully people that are impacted by potentially some of these changes get the right to have their say and hopefully be heard in a reasonable way.
Yeah, I mean, we find that there's, from the work that Rochelle's done, there are some people who absolutely love heritage and protection, and they actually say, can we have more? I know this thing's important. Let's look after it. And then there are other people who definitely don't think that way. And the plan change process is ability for them to both have their say.
I think specifically with trees, the actual cost to maintain some of these big trees, oak trees, whatever they are, is actually, it's more than significant. It's horrendous. And it's actually more expensive to have a qualified arborist or a consulting arborist come up with a plan for a tree and actually do work on it than it is to actually remove the tree. So I know of trees that are visited by a consulting arborist every 2 to 3 years, and remedial work's done on the tree. Tree can actually be considered a damn nuisance to neighbours, but actually it's cheaper to actually just chop it out and get rid of it than it is to actually have a consulting arborist titivate the tree every couple of years. So somebody has actually got to front the cost for that. And when that falls onto private property owners, I think sometimes the regulations are unreasonable. And I think that's just the point I'd make.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh. Sorry.
Just looking at page 197, is the Opiki toll bridge in the middle too?
This side of it.
This
yeah.
side of it
Yeah,
is.
and then obviously the other side's horrible.
6 years I've learned something new.
Councillor Ford.
Let Councillor Belsky go first.
Okay.
I just want to thank you for a very comprehensive report. It's a lot of reading in there, and I looked at Rangawahia and Epity places, and you've got it all correct. So it's very good. Thanks.
Should adopt it right now then, Steve.
Councillor Ford.
I was going to put the motion forward.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Perhaps Councillor Short's got it.
Councillor Short.
Steve, I would have thought that you might have seen that they possibly had missed something. The old Manawatu bridge now that we have the new one, does that have to be? Well, there was some talk of Heritage New Zealand. Putting a heritage rating on it, but I imagine it was nominated by the public.
Yeah, again, we're keeping this one this is a very narrow scoped project where we've essentially started with what's in the plan right now. I'm sure there will be requests and suggestions along the way, and we'll navigate that.
Thank you. Good point. Councillor Campbell.
Just a question around the historic building things there, and the classification changes from, there's quite a few there, from C to B, and what that actually means.
What page?
220. There's quite a few of them, and yeah, I don't have a problem with any of those properties listed there. I think they're all good historic ones. The only one I wondered about was the Halcombe Tavern, which is going from C to B. Well, I don't think there's much value in that building.
It's probably its age. It's about the only part of the Manawatu that's never burned down. It was the first substantial building in Halcombe.
Category C has been ditched, hasn't it? Category C.
Yeah,
Category C has been ditched.
Yes. So it's either category C's either go to up to B, and I think there's one's gone to A, or
they're out
completely.
altogether. Okay.
I'm sure the owners will tell you it's actually a hassle, because that's why it does look so old, because you can't modernise it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Headfield.
Yeah, thank you, Bishop. Matt, just one final thing. What's the difference in the criteria from C to B in terms of what regulatory issues does that place more regulatory constraint on people going from C to B?
Yes,
Yes, it does.
And
you go.
Yeah, it does. But what we've done when we consulted with landowners during this year, they've identified a number of things that they were less supportive of council retaining discretion over a consent process. So the plan change includes a couple of new restricted discretionary consents for external additions and alterations to a heritage building, category B, so that the landowners have more guidance on what will be considered. Otherwise, it was a discretionary under the existing. For category C buildings, that the provisions, that framework was basically taken out of the district plan in 2014, part of Plan Change 46, which reviewed the town centre. But what was there for those was that if they needed a resource consent, if they were relocating the building, if they were wishing to demolish the building, they needed to take a photographic record a month before doing that and providing it with the council. So it was quite limited protection for category C, but as part of category B, any internal additions or alterations are permitted. So the district plan doesn't look at internals. So it's just looking at externals, and that follows basically New Zealand wide, I think. But there are some councils that identify some areas internally that of buildings that are protected. Heritage New Zealand may have different views on wanting some maybe category A buildings to be protected internally, but at the moment the district plan internal additions, alterations are permitted. And then so we're looking at a consent for more the minor external additions and alterations, demolition and relocation. And then as part of this plan change process in consultation with the landowners, we've inserted some permitted activity rules. So where a number of the heritage buildings in the district have, and of houses in particular, and maybe the Halcombe Tavern as well, have lean-tos that have been added on at a later date and not designed in the same colour or style or whatever design as the existing main building. So we've termed them non-contributing building parts of a building, and they changes to those that don't affect the heritage building are a permitted activity. So that's a new addition that we've proposing. Also minor addition alterations to a building for such as solar panels or heat pumps or air conditioning units are permitted activities so long, and this is a new amendment, so long as they're not visible from a road or public.
And that was the next point I was going to make, because I had read that about permitted unless it's visible from the road, which sort of to me seems actually rather puerile in my opinion, because if it's a permitted activity, it should be a permitted activity. Whether somebody can view it from a certain vantage point or whatever, I would describe as puerile and actually nonsensical, actually. But that's only my view. And that was the one thing that actually stood out to me, is that you could actually do something unless somebody could see it. Well, you know, you could grow a tree or put a damn shade fence or something up, which would obscure the view from the road and do exactly what you want. And I just find that sort of probably more unnecessary and, as I say, rather puerile. But that's again only my view.
And I think that that this will all be tested out through the plan change process. And I'd say, just sort of summarising what Rochelle said, that the biggest implication for people impacted by this plan change will be those who have got currently got category C and they're moving to category B. So that means some more kind of controls. But through the consultation and discussion and feedback with some of those owners, what we've tried to do is be clearer around the fact that a lot of these buildings are houses, and houses are modified at part of the course. You know, it's not like a museum piece. And I guess the challenge being, how do you look after the heritage values, but also kind of create some kind of certainty and realisticness around modification. That's content, and that will all be kind of discussed and debated and resolved through a plan change process.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we can go to those recommendations. We are suggesting that the second part of that recommendation should read that council delegate authority to the chief executive to make minor amendments, etc. Councillor Ford.
Thank you, Your Worship. Overall, I think this is a very, very good proposal. I think there'll be some individual listings that might be contentious, but today's not the day to be nitpicking. Excuse me. I'd like to thank you very much, Rochelle. Thank you, Matt. Anyone else that's been involved with this piece of work. It's a big piece of work. And as a puerile nitwit from Manawatu, I'm going to move that the council approves proposed plan changes H, A and B for public notification under clause 5, schedule 1 of the Resource Management Act 1991, and that the chief executive be authorised to make minor amendments to proposed plan changes H, A and B if required prior to public notification, including amendments required following legal review and further iwi engagement.
Thank you. Have a mover. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Short. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Yes, a big piece of work, a lot of communication required and still ongoing. So thank you very much to you and your team.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, let's take a break and we'll adjourn. And if we could please be back ready to start by 10:30.
I said, is the protection being taken off them? And she said it is. And I said, it just worries me. Because
It's coming. Isn't
It also asked.
Oh,
if
this
they're
is from
being
the
requested.
heritage.
They're only
No, I
working
don't
on-
think so. I think it's Heritage New Zealand takes part of the responsibility.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
expecting
yeah.
you.
That's where
you
some
got
of
those ones on the place where you.
There's a consequent reason.
Part of.
Right, let's resume our meeting. Thank you. Right, we are moving on to item 11.3. These are our carry forward requests from the end of the last financial year. And I'm going to hand first to our chief executive and then we'll go to our general managers for comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. The council just draw your attention to the report. The first part contains the 21-22 financial carry forwards, capital items, and Lynn and Hamish in particular, since pretty much all of these sit in the area to ask any further questions. So we'll move on to that shortly. But also on page 298, there is a capital item relocation request. So I just want to explain that a little bit. If you recall, some time ago, I think it's 2 years ago, maybe a year, 2 years ago, 2 years ago, we had some issues with that Clapperton property in Turners Road because it had turned into an estate rather than a well, the person who owned it passed away, so it was an estate,
which was really inconsiderate of them.
Yeah, so we were having issues procuring the strip of land we needed for Turners Road, and at the time, one of the strategies council considered was buying the whole property, taking that strip we needed, and then selling off the balance land. There was $1 million put in the budget to do that, and that is the land acquisition Turners Road land purchase, $1 million that you see at the top of that table. Of course, we didn't need to do that because we were able to, through the Public Works Act, to be able to get that land anyway. So that now is a surplus amount of money that sits in the budget. So $1 million and they're not required. What we are suggesting there is that we reallocate that money for two purposes. The first one is there's some urgent stormwater work needed on the fringes of Fielding, Glasgow Terrace and Sundown Ohuru Road. And so what we're suggesting is that we reallocate 500,000 of that 1 million to those works. There's also, if you also recall, councillors, we bought a paper, again, it's probably a year or two ago, Hamish, to buy a strip of land between Transport and Higgins and Turners Road to provide the link road into the balance land of Precinct 5. Turns out we didn't buy enough. Hamish can explain that. And actually we need to buy a wider strip of land than what was proposed at that time. Now we haven't bought that yet, have we?
No, I think the key thing is we haven't bought anything yet. That there was an error that was picked, if it was missed by all parties, subsequently picked up, that we were only looking at half the land that we needed in effect. So this is essentially a bit of a catch up and taking the opportunity to reallocate this money, some of this money towards that purpose.
So we're proposing that 250K from that, and it goes to the to buy that full wide road strip of land, which leaves a surplus in the budget of 250 unallocated.
May I ask a question?
Thank you, councillor Hadfield.
So the little bit of extra land we need is 250K. Could we not actually have a link road that was one way and save 250K? Just asking.
It'd be a bit difficult in a commercial industrial environment. That's quite a lot of land out there. That's probably 24 hectares.
Yeah.
And that's the main, will be the main U road linking around into that balance industrial land. So we need a full width.
Yeah. It's up to 250K, and there's still some discussions with the landowner to finalise that. I expect it to be a bit less than that, but that just gives us the buffer for our costs and the like to be part of that process.
Thank
so
you.
That's the proposal for that bit.
Can I just clarify that, another question on that?
Mhm.
So we had a sum of money set aside for that purchase.
We were going to essentially reallocate some of the existing road and growth budget for that purpose. That same bucket of money is essentially going to be spent within the Turners Road construction project. It was never surplus money. It was just the opportunity that came along to get that strip. So it's not, we're not double dipping, if that's the line of thinking.
I was really just wanting to clarify, is it actually an extra 250? It actually is, yes. I was thinking it wasn't. It was only about sort of half, but I understand your answer. Yep, thank you.
Just to explain a little bit about you also see the admin building capital item there, and how all we've really done is rephase that now. Now, there is work
Bringing
going.
heating forward, did you say?
No, the heating's an operational cost saving.
Good money for heating.
We've kicked off a new.
You could have chosen a warmer day.
They tell me that merino blankets are quite expensive.
My grandson works at Ranui Farm where they sell the blankets, so we might be able to do a deal. They are, got to. I just want to explain, so the building admin, so this building, I do this without throwing a whole lot of people on the bus.
Can you tell us the page numbers first?
Oh, right, I'm on
294.
299.
Oh, sorry, 299. Oh, there's a reference on.
Sorry, did you want some mirrors and some smoke?
Yeah, so I know that's what I don't want. So Calibre engine, who originally did the engineering assessment on this building, and the work they did, which was the basis of what was brought to council around the strengthening of this building, it was only ever done off the desktop. So the assumptions that were made around, and you recall all those drawings around shear walls and existing walls and walls that were taken out, was all done at a desktop level. So just off existing drawings and plans. When we started reassessing that, and Lynn and I and Adi started looking at those reports, there were a lot of inconsistencies between the myriad of reports that council had presented to it over the years. So we went back to Calibre and said, can you come into the building and do some destructive analysis? In other words, cut some holes in some walls and actually see what's there, and then do an engineering assessment on the building, which is what they have done. And that report is way favourable than what council has been presented previously. So it's not quite there yet, but it's the draft reports, and in talking to the engineer, there's a few things they're going to mock up. But what effectively that's done is delay any work here. So we have rephased that budget because we think we're going to have a very good news story in terms of this building, and a bad news story in terms of some of the previous assumptions. But we absolutely want to nail it, and nail it based on fact, not on assumption. So that's where we're at.
So you don't need the smoke and mirrors, I see. Right.
Well, is that smoke and mirror? I think it's pretty.
No, it sounds positive. Sounds good.
Yep.
And I apologise for speaking out of turn without permission.
So that's that. So going back to the start of the report, which is the capital carry forwards, which is on page 297. Hamish and Lynn are available if anybody wants to ask any further questions on those.
Thank you. Just to comment on the admin building, thinking back to the conversations that we had, it backs up some of the concerns that elected members around this table had at the time, and questioning some of the costings and the reporting that had been done. So I'm pleased that that's finally come to light. Right, questions, comments to Hamish and Lynn in regards to the carry forward specific items. Any questions? Councillor Campbell.
capital items. Questions around the operational ones.
Yep. Which page you're on?
Of 299. The list there of
Yes.
operational budget items that add up to 1.6 million. Not a lot of detail there. Bit in the dark as to what it all is, but some of that would be maintenance work. A lot of it would be in terms of infrastructure. Want to be carried forward to next year. The economic development mystery 223,000. You know what that is?
Is
Not paid to building promotion, something like that.
that is, I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it was relating to fibre development in Turners Road that was deferred.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, it's
Relating
I
to
got
what,
that
sorry?
right.
Fibre development.
It's the,
Oh,
it's money we've already rated for. With a
Oh.
targeted rate on the fibre. So when we set up precinct 5, there was no allowance made for fibre. And so council instigated the installation of it and used the targeted rate. And it was supposed to go down Darrah's Road and into Turners Road. It went partway down Darrah's Road and stopped because Turners Road didn't develop, but it's money we've rated for and it's got to carry forward. I think that's the.
so it will be used for that project.
The intention is that when we do the Turners Road construction, we'll absorb that money in terms of the UFB rollout through that area.
Okay. Councillor Campbell, carry on.
So this main concern of this without any detail here is can you confirm that all of these items are underscored project work like maintenance or development or roads work that was planned to be done, but it didn't get done before the end of June and planning to do it subsequently. And that there's no items in here which relate to underspends on operational works that you want to reapply.
No, we haven't. So in terms of training or salaries or any of that sort of stuff, so any of those overhead or any of those, the budget starts again from 1 July. We're not carrying forward any of that money last year.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield. Yeah, just in terms of the fibre development down that way, I presume, I assume in the wastewater treatment plant, it's not on fibre.
No, it is down to there. Actually, hang on, we've got
It's on.
we've got a wireless
It's
link.
telemetry, yeah.
We've got fibre.
Yeah, it's shooting a sign off the top of this building through to Kawaraka Road.
We've got fibre down there in terms of connecting up the control systems in the plant and out to the irrigation system. But yeah, it's a wireless link down to that point. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ford.
Thank you. I would like to go back to the capital items, page 297, and just a word or two on sort of each of the major figures, please, just to refresh us in terms of what those actual items are that are being carried forward.
I can make it just at a high level run through.
High level is all I'm asking for. One or two words.
Yeah. So in terms of roading, you'll know that we had a lot of emergency works expenditure this year in terms of the weather events. So there were some of those scheduled maintenance items that weren't able to be done. So there's an element of that which is built into it. So that's carrying forward the work program. There's a component of roading growth in relation to precincts 4 and 5, which is either work that's underway in the case of precinct 4 or lining budgets up precinct 5. So that's probably a story for roading. In the wastewater space, again, there's a similar, although much smaller amount in terms of growth related carryovers for the same reasons. We've also got, remembering we're now sitting in October. So this is for the accounts as at the end of June.
Yeah.
So there's been 3 months thereabouts in terms of work from that. So there's a ton of money in that centralisation space which had been spent and just not paid for, so carrying through. Stormwater is largely growth. We've got some reasonable sized numbers in there for stormwater growth, and that again ties into precincts 4 and 5. We had money in terms of the land acquisition of for stormwater detention and for the Makino walkway in the Bailey land up precinct 4. That's been confirmed, but as of the 30th of June, the money hadn't been paid. So there's a carryover there of 7 figures. We've talked about the $1 million Turner's Road component already. And in the water side of it, you've got a good chunk of money relating to the Hakia water scheme, again, for works that were almost finished and not quite spent, but carrying over into those first few months. So the summary of those items there's the bulk of the infrastructure carryovers are contained in those sort of high level explanations.
That's helpful. Thank you.
So going back, just following on from that, the Ohakia water scheme, have we received the payment from Defence?
Yep, that was the MFE funded project. So
First drop.
top of my head, I can't remember the exact schedule of payments, but we've been getting paid. We got paid a lump sum up front, and then we have had milestone payments throughout. So if they're not up to date, they're very nearly. We've been
so maybe I'm thinking about wastewater. There was 6.2 million or something.
6.3, yep. So we've received three and a bit. And we have an agreement in terms of milestone payments during the rest of this financial year for the balance of the 3, which relates to the pump station work, which is currently underway in Sanson, and the 2 intermediate pump stations, which will be built this financial year along the main leg between Sanson and Mount Stewart.
Okay. Thank you.
So that's been resolved, the location of those pump stations in regard to private land or the road.
Yep. They've been working with the landowners down there. Don't ask me who they are. Seems of the meeting today, but the team have been working with them, and we've got good agreement there.
Right, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Well, so going back to Councillor Ford's going through, is that infrastructure kind of covered?
Yes, by and large. I mean, I won't go into every line item, but that's the guts of the key headline items that are in there.
Yep.
Thank you. Lynn, can we do the same for community?
Yeah, sure. For parks, probably we'll look at that one first. At a very high level, the growth carry forwards for that relate to the land purchase for precinct 4 to develop the walkway, because that's split 50-50. And of course, as Hamish said, we're about due to settle on that one. And it also encompasses land purchase with the links along that walkway that runs behind the high school that we're negotiating with the Ministry of Education. And it also encompasses some planting and seating and footbridge and a few things like that that are associated with those 2 developments. So that's a bit of a high level about the growth. And for parks, there's a little bit of finishing work for Kowhai Park Playground. And there is also some freedom camping development at Mount Lees. And there's a number of other smaller items. For instance, an example is working with Horizons to get consent to improve the diversion structures along the beach in Hamatangi. So that gives you a bit of a general feel for it. There's quite a few items in the new carry forwards. And for renewals for parks, there's work at Mount Lees on the homestead, etc. There's the Hamatangi Beach Playground that's nearing completion, and resealing of the car park at Kowhai Park. So that's a little bit about parks and at a high level, and then property, again at a high level. The 78,000 is about just South Street development costs that'll get resolved shortly, and the renewals is mainly around Fielding Little Theatre work and some the community flashings on the Te Manawa building. It's close to that. That gives you a high level explanation about that. And they're probably the two main ones, unless anybody's got any other questions.
Thank you. Is anything further on those capital items carried forward, or any comments on the whole report? Councillor Short.
Support services and other, a lot of renewals there. What would those be? 107,000.
So a lot of that's our motor vehicle fleet, where due to two things. One is it's hard to get new vehicles, so we've been struggling to get replacements. But the other one is all the vehicles that are being used currently now by the utilities team, so the Three Waters team. I'm just sweating them because I don't want to hand over a whole lot of brand new vehicles to government. So in terms, so a lot of them are due to be replaced. So I'm just holding off. So that's money that's carried over in case we decide to make changes around those vehicles.
Makes sense.
And some of it is there's some IT equipment, I think, that they just carried forward as well. That's not much though. I just didn't get around. Again, they're impacted by the supply chain. So.
Okay, thank you. Good explanations. Right, anything further? Otherwise, we can go to the recommendations on page 293. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Ford.
Your worship, I'll move one, that the council approve the requested financial carry forwards of 1.6 million for operational budgets into the 2022-23 financial year, subject to any changes as a result of the external audit process. Two, that the council approve the requested carry forwards of 25.1 million capital budgets into the 2022-23 financial year, subject to any changes as a result of the external audit process. Three, that the council approve the carry forward $1 million budget for previous land purchase to be used for a combination of stormwater upgrades and purchase of land in Turners Road. Four, that the council approve the requested carry forward of $200,000 into the 2022-23 financial year and subsequent rephasing, I think it probably is, of the capital budget for the administration building.
Thank you. I'm happy to second those. I'll put the motions. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motions are carried. Thank you. Thanks, team. Right, we move to page 301. These are the Lagoima requests to the month ending September. It's self-explanatory there, the requests and the associated answers and responses, or those that are still being worked on. So open that up for discussion, questions, comments, please. Councillor Belsky.
There's just one on dog. The person asked how many dog attacks have been done. And I just wasn't sure. Obviously, it's attacks on people, but and then you've got on. I managed to download your page, and it says destroyed, and there's none. And I know for a fact that they had to destroy a dog that attacked my sheep. I've got the confirmation of it. It was destroyed, so that would have been about May. So how come that's not on it?
Look, I'm probably run the Lagoima process, so I'm probably not the.
It said it was completed.
Right.
I think it said it was completed.
What was completed?
You know, when it's got on the right-hand side, whether it's in process or.
Oh, it means the Lagoima is completed, yeah. I mean, we sort of rely on experts within the organisation to provide that information. I mean, our main focus is looking for.
That shouldn't have happened, sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so I actually turned this on to find out the information. And now it's just gone stupid.
So councillor Belsky, what you're questioning is that you're questioning
My
the,
question is, I had a dog destroyed because it killed my sheep. And yet in the reply, it hasn't got it in. That's all.
okay, thank you.
I think it's a fair comment. I mean, the statistics and stuff that we gather, I mean, I guess it's open to making mistakes sometimes. Look, that's something I can go back and talk to the person who gathered the information and make sure we update that.
Yeah, no, it had a tax on people. Is there a tax on stock? Is that in your?
I don't have any, we don't have any, well, I didn't see any additional information about stock attacks.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask that because it's a fact.
Yeah. We did have a couple of requests for information around dog attacks. So I'm not sure whether it was timely, but all of the information requested around that was really around menacing dogs towards humans. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? I just refer to the one that Shane Casey asked about. I wondered if the answer was not actually the answer to the question. What is the percentage of rural ratepayers versus urban? So was the question the total numbers of what we call rural versus the fielding?
So the question that you see in there, that would be the only text that we would have had. So, I mean,
Happy to comment on that. Through you, Your Worship, I was satisfied with the answer. It's exactly what I wanted.
I mean, Mr. Casey could have easily come back if he wanted some additional information. We just would have provided it.
Okay, cool. That's fine. Thank you. Anything further?
I think there's one notable thing there that maybe hasn't easily shown up. So if you look at the very first page where you see the statistics around the number that we've done between the 1st of July to the 20th of September, you'll see that it's not 100%. It's 95.2. So what happened there, we have been tidying up the Lagoima process, and every now and then one slips through and somebody, a field officer, might get a request, or somebody in the organisation, then it might not make it to us in a timely fashion. So we didn't breach, but it's just a bit of a tidy up of that process so that people know to send the information directly to us. The other note in here, if you look at the bottom, one of the last ones, says that one of the Lagoima requests still under investigation by the Ombudsman's office. That's no longer true. That's been cleared and approved, and the Ombudsman office are very happy with everything that we've done. That was related to a request from Mr. Key, a local lawyer, who thought that we hadn't given him all the information we had, and the Ombudsman did not agree with it.
Great, thank you. So nothing further on those. If that's the case, there is a motion on page 301. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, happy to move the report detailing the request for information received under the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 from the 18th of August 2022 to the 20th of September 2022 be received.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ford. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Carried. Okay, and moving on, we are now on page 311, 11.5, deliberations on the draft dangerous, affected and insanitary building policy. So these are the deliberations, and depending on the outcome of this, we are also looking to adopt this policy in our next item. Thanks, Lisa. Welcome, Carol. Okay, so we have a very good in-depth report that came with this item. Is there anything in here that you wish to highlight?
I think the only thing worth noting is the recommended change to clause 3.3.1 4, which was in response to the submission about changes to the health and disability system. So changing it from referring to the regional public health service to the national. We corresponded with the submitter and I've attached the email correspondence there. So they worked through the changes that we had proposed and the reasons why we didn't adopt, why we weren't recommending any other changes in relation to their submission, and they didn't come back with any other changes they wished us to make. So we're satisfied that their concerns have been addressed, and that's sort of the rationale why we are looking at both deliberating and adopting today, noting that the policy is due to be reviewed probably before the next council meeting. So yeah, that's the reason why we're here today with both.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Casey.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. Just around our process, and I appreciate the number of submissions that we're required to do. There's a phenomenal amount of work there, so I certainly want to acknowledge that the councillors and council staff who are involved with that. But if I was to see a submission that's been crafted here, and if I was to disagree with it, what would be the process around that? How would I actually feed into that submission as a elected member?
Through your worship, any changes that would be requested at deliberations, and we'd propose that those be incorporated into the policy before it's signed off and put on the website. So the recommendation that goes with the adoption report, I think, makes reference to any changes agreed at deliberation. So that was to allow those changes to be incorporated before it was put on the website or fully signed off.
Yeah, thank you for that. There is a reason why I say that. We've got submission topics, closing dates, and dates lodged. And that's on page 347. So that's the sort of the genesis for my question. What do you mean by lodged? It's actually being submitted. Is that correct?
Yes.
So therefore, ergo, if there was an issue in there, and that there's no opportunity to feed into it.
No, there is now. This purpose now is these deliberations for council to consider that. And if you make any adjustments to that, then we will have to adjust policy before we move on to the next thing, which is the adoption. So, but we just thought, given how the council meetings are spaced, we'll do the deliberations because it is somewhat minor, and then see what council thinks. If you've got an issue with that, then we'll delay the adoption.
Councillor Ford.
I'm just wondering if this conversation is completely at cross purposes. You referred to page 347. I think that's on a topic still to come. Up to one.
Oh, I do think I've jumped ahead, councillor.
I suspect that might be an issue. Yeah. I just thought
we're on page
better to be clear.
311. Okay. Any other questions, comments? It is, pretty straightforward what's being recommended based on the submission that we've received. Okay.
I'll retract my apologies. I was well sure. My bad.
Straight ahead.
Right. So we have a recommendation on page 311. If I could have a mover and a seconder, please.
I'll just find the page, if you're right.
Right, Councillor Short.
So page 311 wasn't.
Yes.
Recommend that 1, that the council considers and makes decisions on matters raised in the submission on the draft dangerous, affected and insanitary buildings policy 2022 Annex A. 2, that council approve the following changes recommended by council officers in response to the matters raised in the submission on the draft dangerous, affected and insanitary buildings policy 2022. That clause 3.3.14 be amended as follows. 4, liaise with, cross out, insert medical officer of health within the local office of the National Public Health Service when required to assess whether the occupants may be neglected or infirm.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Ford. Any further discussion? Councillor Marsh.
Yes, sorry, just to interrupt. Where am I? 4.9. Fire and Emergency New Zealand Act. which is stated in the 4.9, but then in section 49 of the Fens Act. Just wondering, I'd like some consistency through there, that was all. Yeah, but that's probably just in the documentation rather than, sorry, just a note. Coming out me.
Okay, thank you. So we've had a mover and a seconder for the recommendation. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Right, so that means we can move on now to page 333, seeking to adopt the dangerous, affected and sanitary buildings policy. Given the discussion we've just had, is there anything further that anyone wishes to raise? Questions, comments? No, councillor Ford.
I move that the council adopt the dangerous, affected and unsanitary buildings policy 2022, Annex A, subject to any changes agreed at deliberations at the 6th of October 2022 council meeting with an effective date of 6 October 2022.
Thank you. Have a mover. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Belsky. No further discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Good
Thank you,
work.
Worship. Thanks, Carol.
Right, so we move to page 345. This is putting on public record the submissions that have been lodged by council during August and September. You'll recall we have got a working submission group of which councillors Hadfield, Short and myself work alongside Lisa and Kimmy and her team. There has been a lot of work over the last couple of months, and you can see by the submissions that had deadlines within this time frame. So this is bringing the final submissions to your attention and putting them on record. So we'll take those as read. Lisa, is there anything you wanted to highlight?
No, not really, Your Worship. I think it's all pretty self-explanatory.
Any questions, comments from the team? So there are 5 submissions there. There's enormous a lot of work, discussion that we've had, and then Lisa and her team put all that discussion into a document. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, I'd just like to recognise the work that Lisa does on this, and if I was going to say anything, actually, probably there's a little bit more involved in this than I actually thought when I was perhaps, I was not going to say silly enough to put my hand up, but I think certainly there's some very interesting stuff actually that comes across that requires a bit of detailed analysis, and I know probably I don't want to speak for Councillor Short, but I think we've both been very pleased to have a little cloths that wipe our glasses and keep them clean so that we can read all this stuff, because there's actually an awful lot of work involved in it. But I do want to congratulate Lisa and the staff that put this stuff, and I think the really pleasing thing from our perspective is that actually we're being proactive as a council and actually and having a say on stuff that we believe affects our community. And I think we're now doing this better than we've done before previously. So well done, Lisa, and well done, Kathy and everybody else.
Thank you. Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, I'd like to, thank you. I'd like to extend that further to the mayor and the 2 councillors that have gone on that as well. I think it's a very important role that's played, and it's important to keep up to date with what's happening. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
And, you know, even though we keep talking about this never-ending list of reforms, the reality is every time we meet, there's a heap more come in the back door, which Lisa and Kimmy keep us up to speed with, but also the work that they do behind the scenes before it comes to the submissions working group is that they talk to the relevant department of council to get their guide about, is this a technical thing? Does it need a submission? what impact does it have on our district, etc., so that we can prioritise what needs to be done, because the reality is we can't address them all. Okay, so with that, I'm happy to move that the council receives and notes the submissions lodged on behalf of the Manawatu District Council as outlined in the report of the General Manager Corporate Services dated the 19th of September 2022.
Just before we second that, can we just have a little bit of a high level discussion around the submission on the local government electoral reform? Just there's no detail here, whereas most of the others had detail to it. I just if there was any major changes, or given that I won't say the debacle that's out there as far as elections concerned, with postal, electronic and other things. Just
sure.
What some of them what it's worth.
So that's the local government electoral legislation bill. Lisa, do you just want to take us through the key point of our submission?
What page you on? 362.
It was pretty straightforward. It's on page 362 that we supported the submission by Tautura, but if you could highlight what those key points were.
So the bill itself was around aligning the processes for creating and reviewing Māori wards and constituencies, as well as clarifying how tied elections are to be resolved, empowering the electronic receipt of nominations, and introducing a new process for changing local board boundaries. And those changes are proposed to come into effect for the 2025 elections. And the Tautura submission that we supported, got that here. I'm happy to circulate that to you all as well.
More around the electronic side of things. So,
okay,
yeah.
have a look.
Just in case I put my hand up again, you never know.
You mean in terms of the voting? Yeah.
Tied elections, electronic.
So
postal things.
Yeah, so an update on that. And I was talking to a chief executive who was on the working party that looked at electronic voting last time. And there was a number of councils that put their hand up to be on the trial, and we were one of those. So the investigation was undertaken to look at electronic voting. The only system that the government was prepared to accept is the system that they run in the United States for their voting, and because of the security and everything, the expectations, the cost of the trial was going to be $5 million.
And we were expected to pay it.
And central government weren't prepared to put any money into it, so the councils went.
So even though we're supporting the submission that's going to be in place by 2025, we've probably got very little chance that anything's going to happen.
I honestly think, given what's happening with the current voting, with both papers going out and votes being posted, that there's going to have to be a significant review, because what's happening now is not good enough.
And it is something that we need to collectively as councils and through LGNZ push back hard, because Minister Mahuta's been in the media this week saying it's the council's fault because they wouldn't adopt a new system.
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, sorry.
Yeah.
Both.
Thank you for
Both
giving me that feedback.
both of them. So they need to be called out on.
I think it's fair to say, Your Worship, that both those learned political figures indulge in terminological inexactitudes quite frequently.
Absolutely. Councillor Short.
Slightly on an aside, I don't know whether any of you watched Q&A on Sunday morning, but Jack Tane interviewed Warwick Lamp, and it's an interview worth finding on demand if you didn't see it. And he pretty much said, I think this particular local government election will be the nemesis for
change,
electronic voting, because it's clearly already disastrous.
Absolutely.
So again, just sorry to go around in the circle, but should we then have not given a much more in-depth submission back?
No, because electronic voting wasn't part of the bill.
No.
That we were to do the submission on. So the Tautura submission didn't.
Yeah, through Your Worship, the Tautura submission talks about, so it's around electronic transmission of nominating documents, and it says clause 24 of the bill allows for the receipt of nominations via electronic means, e.g. fax or email. New Zealanders are receiving a lower level of service from the postal system, and the local electoral system was no different. One of the ways that this manifested itself was in the delivery of nomination forms from potential candidates. So this bill was proposing to allow nominations to be received by electronic means. So we were supporting that. It doesn't go any further into electronic voting.
Because it seems an absolute debacle to me that even when you're doing a submission for your 3 waters, etc., that you can't even do that.
Can't
through an
email. Exactly.
Exactly. Just absolute.
And I think this is another example of where our new council will need to think really carefully and get involved in representation on local government New Zealand at national council level, because these are the kind of issues that I believe they should be absolutely pushing.
Thank you. Good luck.
Right. Oh, it's been moved. Thank you. You've got me up to speed. Okay, we have a move. Thank you, Councillor Marsh. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
What are we talking
Against? Don't go there. Right, thank you. So our late item is going into public excluded, and our item 13 will be after lunch at 1 o'clock. So with that, I am happy to move that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely the confirmation of minutes, purchase of land for a roading corridor, tender award recommendation, our late item, and the Chief Executive's key performance indicators.
Second that.
Thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Just take a moment.